The moment my son said it, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't sound angry. He sounded certain. We were sitting at my kitchen table. It's the same one where I'd helped him with homework, paid his first phone bill, and listened to his plans for a future he always assumed I would quietly fund. He leaned back in his chair and said, "Mom, you're just my mother. This isn't really your place to decide." I remember the hum of the refrigerator behind me, the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, and the strange calm that settled in my chest, not because I wasn't hurt, but because something finally clicked. Before I continue, if you've ever struggled with boundaries inside your own family, you're not alone. Feel free to subscribe or share your thoughts in the comments. I read them more often than you might think. At the time, my son was 28, smart, capable, employed, and still deeply, comfortably supported by me. I paid for more than I admitted out loud: his car insurance, the phone plan, the temporary help with rent that had quietly stretched into years, even groceries when things were tight, though his social media suggested otherwise. I didn't see myself as a victim. I saw myself as a mother doing what mothers do, making life easier for her child, believing that one day it would be noticed, appreciated, maybe even reciprocated with respect. That afternoon, the conversation started small. I had asked a simple question about his finances, not to control him, to understand how he was managing. He sighed, not loudly, just enough to let me know I was inconveniencing him. "That stuff stresses me out," he said. "You worry too much." I smiled, the way mothers do when they swallow concern instead of voicing it. "I worry because I care," I replied, "and because I help." That's when he said it. That single sentence that rearranged how I saw everything. "You're just my mother. Not my partner in responsibility. Not someone whose sacrifices deserved consideration. Just a role, a function, background presence." I nodded slowly, even thanked him for being honest. But inside, something cracked, quietly, cleanly. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't threaten. I simply listened, because in that moment, realized something important. If I was just his mother, then he didn't see the cost of my support, and maybe he never had. And if he didn't see it, maybe it was time he felt it. I didn't know yet what I would do. I only knew what I wouldn't do anymore. That was the beginning, to understand why his words cut so deeply. You have to understand the years that came before them. I raised my son mostly on my own. His father was present in the way some people technically are. Birthdays remembered, child support paid, but the daily weight of parenting rested on me. I was the one who left work early when the school called, the one who sat in the car during soccer practice answering emails because I couldn't afford not to work overtime, the one who reassured him again and again that we were doing fine. Even when I lay awake at night doing mental math I hoped he'd never have to learn. I didn't resent those years. Not really. I chose motherhood with open eyes, and despite the exhaustion, there was pride in knowing I was capable. When he graduated college, I thought the hardest part was behind us. He had a degree, ambition, and what I believed was gratitude. He moved back home for a few months just until he got on his feet. I charged him no rent. I told myself it was temporary, that this was what support looked like in a tight economy. Those few months turned into a year, then another. When he finally moved out, I helped with the deposit, then the furniture, then the little gaps, the car repair here, the insurance payment there. Each time, he assured me it was short term. "I'll pay you back," he'd say casually, already half focused on his phone. I never asked him to. Not because I didn't need the money, I did, but because I believed that one day he'd simply stop needing me in that way. That independence would arrive naturally, like a milestone you don't have to announce. Instead, dependence settled in quietly and made itself comfortable. Looking back, there were signs I ignored. The way he never asked if I could help, only how soon. The way financial conversations made him defensive, even when I was calm. The way he referred to my support as what you do for family, never as a favor or a sacrifice. Once, when I mentioned cutting back on overtime because I was tired, he laughed softly and said, You don't know how to relax, Mom. He didn't ask why I worked so much. He didn't need to. I told myself this was normal, that this was the cost of loving deeply, that eventually he'd see me not just as his mother, but as a person, aging, finite, deserving of care too. What I didn't realize then was that I had blurred a line, not intentionally, not recklessly, but consistently. And when lines blur long enough, people stop seeing them at all. By the time we sat at that kitchen table, my son didn't see support. He saw entitlement dressed up as family, and I was only beginning to understand how much that misunderstanding would cost both of us. After that conversation at the kitchen table, nothing changed on the surface. My son still called when his car needed maintenance, still forwarded bills with a quick "can you cover this?" Still spoke to me kindly, even affectionately, as long as I stayed in my lane. And for a while, I did. Not because I hadn't heard him, but because hearing something doesn't always mean you're ready to act on it. What changed was quieter. I started noticing how carefully he protected his independence. Just not from me. He had opinions about everything, about politics, about work culture, about how adults should build their own lives. He spoke with confidence, even moral certainty. But that certainty never extended to the invisible scaffolding holding his life together. Once, I suggested he consider a cheaper apartment if money was tight. He frowned. "I'm not going backward," he said. "I deserve stability." I didn't argue. I transferred the money instead. Another time he told me he was planning a weekend trip with friends. A few days later, he called to say his credit card had maxed out. "You don't want me stressed before work on Monday, right?" he said lightly. I heard myself laugh, a soft, practiced sound, the kind you make when you're avoiding a harder truth. Inside, though, something tightened. I wasn't angry yet. I was confused. I had raised him to be considerate, to understand effort, to say thank you. And he still said the words, "Thanks, Mom," always polite, always brief. But gratitude without awareness is just noise. The real shift came the evening. Overheard him talking to his girlfriend. They were on speaker, and he didn't realize I was within earshot. I wasn't eavesdropping, was putting groceries away, groceries I had paid for, because he'd mentioned work was slow. She asked if he was worried about money. He laughed. "No," he said. "My mom's got me. She worries more than she needs to." There it was, not affection, not respect, assurance, I stood there holding a bag of apples, feeling oddly invisible. It wasn't that he depended on me. It was that he counted on me. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept replaying his words, not with anger, but with a dawning clarity. I realized that in his mind, my support wasn't something that could be withdrawn. 'Twas a constant, like electricity. Like water, something you only think about when it stops. For the first time, I asked myself a question I had avoided for years. What happens when a parent's love is mistaken for an obligation? I didn't have the answer yet, but I could feel myself approaching a limit. Not a dramatic breaking point, but a quiet one. The kind that arrives without warning and changes everything after. The moment of clarity didn't come during an argument, it came during a word. Celebration. My son invited me to dinner to mark a promotion at work. A good restaurant, the kind with low lighting and menus without prices. I hesitated before going, but told myself this was progress. This was adulthood. Maybe even gratitude. Halfway through the meal, he raised his glass and thanked everyone at the table, his girlfriend, his friends, his manager for supporting him. He didn't look at me when the check arrived. The waiter placed it neatly at the edge of the table. My son didn't reach for it. Instead, he pushed it toward me with a familiar ease. "You don't mind, right?" he said. "You always handle this stuff better than I do." Something in me finally settled. Not anger, not humiliation. Certainty. I paid the bill. I smiled. I congratulated him again. And when I got home, I sat alone at my kitchen table, the same one where weeks earlier he had reminded me of my place. I opened my laptop for the first time in years. I listed everything I was paying for it line by line.month-by-month.car, insurance.phone plan, streaming subscriptions, emergency, transfers that were no longer emergencies, rent, help.double quotes groceries.medical, copays. The number at the bottom surprised me, not because it was high, but because I had normalized it. I thought about my own future, about retirement, about the way my body felt more tired lately, about the fact that I had postponed dental work twice because it wasn't urgent. And then I remembered his words, "You're just my mother." If that was true, then I had misunderstood my role not as a parent but as a provider. That night, I didn't make a dramatic decision. I didn't cut him off or write an ultimatum. I did something quieter. I reviewed my finances. I spoke with my bank. I checked what was legally and reasonably mine, too. Control. And I made a simple plan, one rooted in clarity, not punishment. The next morning, I sent him a message. "Let's talk soon. About finances." He replied within minutes. "Why? Is something wrong?" I stared at the screen before answering. "No," I typed. "Something is finally clear." We met a few days later at a quiet cafe near his apartment. Neutral ground. Public, but not performative. I arrived early, not because I was anxious, but because I wanted a moment to breathe before speaking. When he walked in, he looked relaxed, confident, the way people do when they believe they're on familiar footing. So he said, sitting down, "What's going on?" I folded my hands around my coffee cup and spoke slowly. "I've been reviewing my finances," I began, "and I've realized I can't continue supporting you the way I have been." He blinked, surprised but not alarmed. "Okay," he said. "I mean, things are a little tight right now, but this is temporary." I nodded. "That's what you've said before." He laughed lightly as if to brush away the tension. "Mom, come on. I'm good for it." I met his eyes. "That's not the issue." His smile faded just slightly. "For years," I continued, "I've helped because I wanted to, because I believed it was support, not expectation. But recently, I've realized it's become something else." He leaned back, crossed his arms. "Are you saying you don't want to help your own son?" I took a breath. This was the moment I'd anticipated to turn, where love is questioned instead of behavior. "I'm saying I need to stop paying for things that aren't my responsibility anymore." Silence settled between us. Then his tone changed. Not angry, defensive. "I didn't mean it like that," he said. "What I said before about you being my mother, I was just saying you worry too much." "I know what you meant," I replied calmly. "And I also know what it revealed." He shook his head. "This feels sudden." "It's not," I said. "It's just the first time I'm saying it out loud." I explained my plan, not as a threat, but as a timeline. I would keep his phone on my plan for 3 more months. I would cover car insurance through the end of the policy period. After that, those responsibilities would transfer to him. No lectures, no conditions, no apologies. He stared at the table. "So that's it?" He asked. "You're just done." "I'm not done being your mother," I said gently. "I'm done being your safety net." He looked up then, eyes sharper. "I can't manage all of that at once." "Cably, you can," I said. "Because you're capable. And because you need to." He didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice was tight. "This feels like punishment." I shook my head. "It's not. It's a boundary." We left the cafe without hugging. And for the first time, I walked away feeling steady, not because it was easy, but because it was honest. The pushback didn't come from my son. Right away, it came from everyone else. His girlfriend called first. Her voice was careful, rehearsed. "He's been really stressed," she said. "This timing isn't great for him." I listened without interrupting. "I understand," I replied. "But this isn't about timing. It's about responsibility." She paused, then tried a softer approach. He's just not used to handling everything alone. Neither was I. I thought, not when I started. A few days later, my sister called. I hear you're cutting him off, she said, concern wrapped in accusation. I'm not, I answered. I'm stepping back. That's the same thing. No, I said quietly. It only feels that way if someone was standing too close. What surprised me most was how quickly the story shifted. I became the difficult one, the one making things harder than they needed to be, the one forgetting what mothers are supposed to do. For a moment, doubt crept in. Late at night, I replayed the cafe conversation. Wondered if I'd been too firm, too abrupt. I missed him, not the version of him that needed me, but the version I believed he could become. Then the bills started arriving, not to me, to him. I knew this because he told me. This is overwhelming, he said on the phone one evening. I didn't realize how much stuff was in my name now. I closed my eyes, steadying myself. I know, I said. That's why I managed it for so long. There was a long silence. For the first time, he wasn't defensive. He was unsettled. I might need help, he admitted. I chose my words carefully. I can help you plan, I said. I can't help you pay. He exhaled sharply. You've changed. Yes, I said. I have. And it was true. I slept better. My shoulders felt lighter. I scheduled the dental appointment. I'd been postponing. This wasn't punishment. This was redistribution of weight. And for the first time, it was landing where it belonged. Asterisk. The pushback didn't come from my son right away. It came from everyone else. His girlfriend called first. Her voice was careful, rehearsed. He's been really stressed, she said. This timing isn't great for him. I listened without interrupting. I understand, I replied. But this isn't about timing. It's about responsibility. She paused. Then tried a softer approach. He's just not used to handling everything alone. Neither was I. I thought, not when I started. A few days later, my sister called. I hear you're cutting him off, she said. Concern wrapped in accusation. I'm not, I answered. I'm stepping back. That's the same thing. No, I said quietly. It only feels that way if someone was standing too close. What surprised me most was how quickly the story shifted. I became the difficult one, the one making things harder than they needed to be, the one forgetting what mothers are supposed to do. For a moment, doubt crept in. Late at night, I replayed the cafe conversation. Wondered if I'd been too firm, too abrupt. I missed him, not the version of him that needed me, but the version I believed he could become. Then the bills started arriving, not to me, to him. I knew this because he told me. This is overwhelming, he said on the phone one evening. I didn't realize how much stuff was in my name now. I closed my eyes, steadying myself. I know, I said. That's why I managed it for so long. There was a long silence. For the first time, he wasn't defensive. He was unsettled. I might need help, he admitted. I chose my words carefully. I can help you plan, I said. I can't help you pay. He exhaled sharply. You've changed. Yes, I said. I have. And it was true. I slept better. My shoulders felt lighter. I scheduled the dental appointment. I'd been postponing. This wasn't punishment. This was redistribution of weight. And for the first time, was landing where it belonged. For the first time, was landing where it belonged. The real test came a month later. My son showed up at my door unannounced, standing there with the posture of someone bracing for disappointment. He looked tired in a way I hadn't seen before. Not physically, but mentally. I didn't budget right, he said. No greeting, no preamble. I'm short this month. Stepped aside to let him in, but I didn't rush to fix anything. We sat across from each other in the living room, explained where the money had gone. Rent, insurance, groceries, a few things he hadn't anticipated. He spoke carefully, as if choosing the right words might soften the outcome. When he finished, he looked at me. I just need help this once. This was the moment I had prepared for, not with speeches, but with resolve. I can't do that, I said. His jaw tightened. So you're really serious about this? I'd been serious the whole time. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration flashing across his face. You're choosing money over me? I shook my head slowly. I'm choosing clarity over resentment. The words surprised both of us. I explained again, calmly, that stepping in now would undo everything we were trying to change. That helping him avoid consequences would only delay his growth and deepen my own exhaustion. He stood up abruptly. I can't believe you do this, he said. After everything, stayed seated. After everything, I repeated quietly, is exactly why I won't. He left without saying goodbye. That night, guilt came knocking hard. The old instinct to rescue, to smooth, to absorb tugged at me. But underneath it was something new. Trust. Not just in him, but in myself. 2 weeks later, he called. I figured it out, he said. His voice was steadier. It was rough. But I figured it out. I smiled alone in my kitchen. I knew you would, I said. Things didn't magically fix themselves after that. My son didn't suddenly become expressive or apologetic. Our conversations stayed careful for a while, like we were both learning new footing, but something had shifted, subtle, steady, real. He stopped asking me for money instead, started asking questions. How to compare insurance plans, how to prioritize debt, how to say no to things he couldn't afford without feeling ashamed. One afternoon, months later, he came over for dinner. Just dinner, no agenda. No crisis. As I cleared the table, he said quietly, I didn't realize how much you were carrying. I didn't rush to respond. I thought being independent meant not needing anyone, he continued. I didn't see that I was still leaning on you. I nodded. That was enough. We're still mother and son. That never changed. What changed was the shape of our relationship from dependency to respect. I've learned that boundaries don't mean withdrawal. They mean intention. They protect. Love from turning into obligation and care from becoming currency. If there's one thing I've taken from all of this, it's that self-respect doesn't arrive with permission. Sometimes it arrives when you finally stop explaining yourself. And maybe that's the quiet justice in all of this, not that anyone lost something, but that we both gained clarity. If you've ever felt taken for granted by the people you love, I'd like to ask you something. What boundary have you been afraid to set, and what might change if you finally did?